I'd like to get your thoughts on an issue that's only been touched on. We've talked a lot about terrorism because that's where the fight is. But I think North Korea has been raised a couple of times, and to me, that is the biggest issue that we have. If you're going to describe big, what happens when somebody knocks on the door of the Oval Office and says, "Mr. President, North Korea has just launched. What do you want us to do?" And look, there's no time for an AUMF. There's no time to get the lawyers involved to determine what can or can't be done. And somebody's got to make that decision. So I appreciate Chairman's thoughts that we should have a separate hearing on this particular issue. But I'd like to get your thoughts on what. And I know the lawyers are on both sides of this. I've heard cadres of lawyers argue whether the president has this power, whether it's limited, whether Congress has that power. I'd like to get your thoughts under the scenario I've just talked about. As far as the terrorism thing, we deal with that regularly in the Intelligence Committee and on this committee. Tell me about North Korea. What happens? What happens if somebody knocks on the door and says, "Mr. President, they've launched"? In summary, I'm not going to ask you to give us anything classified out.
The first step, of course, would be that our ballistic missile defense forces at sea and in Alaska, California, the various radars would be feeding in, and they would do what they're designed to do as we make every effort to take them out. The response, if that's what you're referring to, after the immediate defense would, of course, depend on the President and laying out options, a wide array of options, I will tell you, and in alliance with our allies as well, I might add, because many of them have roles to play here, have indicated they'll be with us. And we would take the action the President directed, and I'm sure the Congress would be intimately involved.
Well, and of course, under the scenario I've outlined, this is a matter of minutes, not a matter of days or even hours.
Defenses will go, sir. We don't
get that.
do any. I mean, the President will be woken up or whatever, but our commands are. We rehearse this. I will just tell you, routinely.
I get that.
I'll just leave it at that in this open session, sir.
Secretary Tillerson, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I think as Secretary Mattis indicated, we do have defensive mechanisms which are in place. There would be some judgment made as to the effectiveness of those, and then there'd be some judgment made of whether a necessary and proportionate response is required. You know, one of the strengths of the last 70 years has been the deterrence. The fact that no president, Republican or Democrat, has ever forsworn the first strike capability. That has served us for 70 years. So I think any consideration of foregoing that does change in a I think, a very material way, that deterrence, the strength of that deterrence. So
I agree, Mr. Secretary, and also it seems to me that the enemy we're dealing with here with in North Korea, that deterrence issue does not seem to be phasing them, because either a man would have to be absolutely crazy or incredibly stupid to not know what was going to happen after that. My time's up. Thank you.